In a land far away, on a little rock in the Irish Sea, is a place we call the Isle of Man. And on that rock, recorded live in the Uttabull studios, it's Uttabull.
It's exactly what it says in the title.
And here's your host, Liam Reynolds.
Welcome to episode 206 of Uttabull. My name is Liam, and today we're going to talk about the past, how we got to the present, and what our future looks like. Back in 2010, Uttabull was started by me, and I talked my sister Kelly, or Jim Bob as she was fondly known, into making the show with me. This was done as a kind of spin-off of a show called Sorry for Your Luck, which in turn was a spin-off from an infamous Las Vegas podcast called This Ain't Iowa, hosted by stand-up comedian Brian Malika. Uttabull, with its catchphrase, "It's exactly what it says in the title," was started as a pub chat podcast. Broken down, it was a couple of people talking about anything and everything like they would if they were in a pub over a drink or three. The conversation would flow and the shows would serve as a useful distraction to many people who were commuting to work or needing something to listen to. It grew, and with it, it had a solid listener base of maybe 100 people per show. There were also the micro shows titled Uttabull Live and the Next Level podcast, which was a fitness and running based show. We were also privileged to have had listener meetups in Vegas in 2014, Isle of Man in 2015 and Reston, Virginia in 2017. Early on, my childhood friend from back home joined for an episode. The chemistry just worked, the banter was crazy and the ability to bounce off each other left the show's followers wanting more. So Jason joined and became a semi-permanent feature of the show, with Kelly, Tony and Becky filling in from time to time as co-hosts. The show ran for 183 episodes until in 2016, where it became obvious that I needed a break from producing and editing the shows, as my mental health was failing. My strive for perfection of producing perfectly produced shows was unable to keep up with the demands I was placing on myself. There was utter silence until December 2019, where we picked up from where we left off, and we started recording again. But my mental health was still not quite right, and even though I was giving less energy to the production of the show, I was still suffering. And despite the renewed attempt at vigour and the show going through a branding reboot in February 2021, the show fell silent once again. Since then, as I've worked on myself and my mental health, I've embarked on a journey of using my podcasting production skills in the corporate world, interviewing PLC board members for both third parties and my own micro brand, Aim on Air. Owing to a contract finishing and with a subsequent slowdown in productions, I soon found myself once again lacking in confidence. But the urge to make more content began to eat at me. Knowing confidence is born from repetition, the only way to get back into it was to create something. We never actually quit Uttabull. We just fell silent. It was always still there, the URL of our website, and more importantly, the FeedBurner feed, which is where the magic happens connecting the podcast that we produce, ends up on your devices. What we really needed to do at that point was just record and publish something. It was always a question of when. The world has evolved so much over the past few years. Editing can be done in a few clicks, and offering me a standard of production that, let's be honest, to you, our listener, is acceptable. No longer do I feel like I have to produce TV quality content that allows me to not constantly think about being judged on every micro detail. And that was what I found so hard to balance, my vision of what a podcast should sound like and be produced like, versus what podcasts around the world sound like. And I realise now for most people, it does not matter. So, 2024. What is Uttabull going to do? I tried and failed miserably, in my opinion, to explain to Jason in the last show about my vision, so I've decided to take my time to think about it, explain it in a little more detail to you now. I've realised over time that people love stories about people. I have a way with words that is engaging, at least that's what I'm told. I've always enjoyed interviewing people. Since working with the PLC CEOs, I've tuned my skills more and made the interviews less about me and more about the guest. It was a conversation with the gent I met, suggesting I should be more like Michael Parkinson and less like Jonathan Ross. That's led me to where I am today. They're both considered to be greats when it comes to talk show hosts here in Great Britain. Working with CEOs means there's an amount of work involved before we can get to recording an interview. In fact, compared to Uttabull, they are polar opposites. A regular show with Jason, I normally would not contemplate what I was talking about until I've made my brew, had my pre-show wee, and even then still not made my mind up, as I then hit record saying, and I have to say, Jason, my opening line is usually just comes to me. The CEO interviews, by way of contrast, my own words are usually scripted. They are well researched with a good few hours of thought, preparation and organisation long before I sit down, turn on the studio lights and welcome the guest. I think I can turn this to my advantage if you pay attention to any YouTube video or podcast about making content. They've always said that you should drill down into your niche and become known as an expert on the subject. But anyone who's been here since 2010 will know that I've bemoaned this. I've always said I don't have a niche. Pub chats simply do not get their own category anywhere. Well, except in a pub. Then, whilst out for a long run and thinking about restarting Uttabull, literally last week, I realised that I should have both the new and old styles of shows, and the focus should be around my life. Rather than make it specifically about me, it should be about the people who are in and around and make up those things that I'm interested in. That's my niche. After all, I'm a people person. Here, and it is still in its infancy, is what I envisage. Each will likely appeal to different audiences, but will bring with it a variety of content that should be for both entertaining and interesting for everybody. We've got Uttabull, which I guess we should just consider terming the OG, at least for now. Most likely these will appear every other week. Jason and I will be talking utter nonsense about whatever's going on in our lives and what I like to call a traditional pub-style chat podcast. Then we have the working title of Uttabull, the Isle of Man. Ideally, I'd like to meet local people in my community, explore their stories and businesses, much smaller productions with real content telling the real story about real people. Then we have Uttabull Chats Markets. This is an interesting one. I've actually got a whole community of people who I engage with frequently on another platform that I run and involved with the gold mining stock. In my head, I can see the crossover. I think I can bring Uttabull to them, whilst at the same time bringing a whole new audience to Uttabull. There's an element of being honest, open and vulnerable, which in my mind can only further that bond with you, the audience, and bring us closer together. Finally, we have, and this is just a title that I put down, Uttabull Chats Running. Uttabull Running Chats. Maybe that sounds better. Real people with real experiences. There is so much to explore with people running on the Isle of Man, even recording whilst running, which could prove interesting. But I think it could work. We certainly have the same sort of chats that are appearing in these podcasts without running. So there you have it, Uttabull in 2024. You could call it Season 3, but either way, I'm enthused to bring this back to life. I suspect we'll have to work to grow our audience, as the initial numbers suggest we've lost many of you. But for now, I shall leave you be. Jason will be back next time, and we shall work out who our first guest will be. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm in two minds in asking you to follow or subscribe. It's so cliche, and everyone does it. And frankly, it annoys me. But then I'm a hypocrite if I sit here and go, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow. So, I don't know. That said, anyone who smashes a thumbs up will always get my applause. Thank you if you do that, because that just, I don't know, apparently that just helps tell the YouTube algorithms that it's good. I don't know. I still don't understand it. Anyway, back to the script. That's it. At least it lets me know that it's not just my mum watching. Hi, Mum. Which reminds me, new listeners, you may wonder what the whole sorry mum thing is about. It's been a running joke since the first episode where I swore, realised that Mama was listening, and I apologised without even thinking about it. The very next episode, we had Patch and Kenny on from Sorry For Your Luck, and they made no hesitation in apologising whenever they swore. Since then, everyone who's been on this show has always apologised, and it's kind of become my catchphrase. So without any further waffling from me, thank you for taking the time to check out this episode. I hope it's helped shed some light on our past, present, and future. We have all sorts of ways to be contacted. Spotify and YouTube are probably the best in the comments sections, but we're on Facebook and then X if that's really not enough. You could always send me an email to uttabull@gmail.com. Until next time, my name's Liam, and you've been watching Uttabull. Sorry, Mum.
Uttabull. It's exactly what it says in the title. Uttabull is part of the Uttabull Podcast Network, copyright 2024. Sorry, Mom. Do I have to do any more of these, Dad?